Hey guys, welcome back. I'm here with Dave Heller from the TCA, the Truckload Carriers Association. We recently announced a partnership with TCA, but more importantly, there's a lot of things going on in the truckload industry that's impacting it. Let's start with ELDs. What ELDs have been hard mandated since April of 2018. We've seen a lot of discussion about ELDs. What do you think ELDs have accomplished, and where do you think changes can be made to improve the process and safety for carriers?
Well, and that's a great question. The first thing it's accomplished is it's changed the landscape of the trucking industry. Drivers are now operating in a true environment, if you will, and they're telling their true story. The one thing we can look forward to is the data that these devices are now producing, which will change the regulatory landscape of the trucking industry. We've seen issues like personal conveyance come out of FMCSA, possible hours of service changes that are really going to be incorporated into this industry, all on the basis of these ELDs, because it shows the compliance issues that affect drivers that are operating today, especially when it comes to things like detention time. We can better track that. We know where the issues are. We're starting to outline the biggest bottlenecks because these drivers are basically waiting in their trucks to move freight, and it's just not good for the industry. We have to get our drivers driving without a doubt, and ELDs is the step to providing the data to changing rules that will get those drivers driving.
And what do you think in terms of, let's go 3 years out from where we're at today, and we look back at the ELD mandate, what can we say has successfully been accomplished during those next 3 years?
Yeah, another great question is number one, capacity is tightened up, and ELDs is one of those factors that it has tightened up. And we're kind of at the beginning stages of this mandate. So 3 years from now versus the 6 months that we've been operating under, we've only begun seeing the tip of the iceberg with these data, with the data that's generated. I've seen some charts and graphs through the sonar program that basically have highlighted detention time down to the dock door. We can improve efficiencies in the freight delivery model with ELDs and the data that's generated. Issues that we've never seen before. This is basically a monumental explosion of data that will improve the lives of the truck drivers out there in our industry.
Do you think, looking back a couple of years down the road in that 3-year period, that drivers will look back and say, this has improved my life, it's improved the compliance and accountability of shippers, it's brokers that have sort of not respected my hours or are not able to get capacity, and shippers are the same? Do you think that's what we end up the result of the ELD mandate?
At a crystal ball, in a perfect world, that's what happens, right? Because they're telling the true story. We now know what drivers are encountering on a daily basis, other than the fraudulent logs that they used to submit. These are real-time, true data that's being collected. So you hope things like that will be addressed. You hope the shippers and receivers out there will improve their efficiencies to get drivers in and out, so that they can be prepared to haul freight. So 3 years down the road, or looking back, in 3 years looking back, I know we will be doing more things for the drivers, hopefully changing regulations that make their lives easier and expedite the freight efficiency or freight delivery model.
One of the things that I've really been intrigued about and excited about and optimistic about is the fact that you mentioned it earlier, is the data that we're getting from the ELD devices. Yep. There's never been an opportunity ever afforded to us to have visibility of where drivers are being detained. Yep. Not only detained, but where they're struggling. So identifying parking opportunities and how to improve the lifestyle around parking, yep, improving dock conditions, but also holding shippers accountable that have negative practices, yep, and then the term shipper of choice that gets used a lot, shippers that actually operate with high quality should have more affordability in trucking prices. Yep. Because if that data becomes transparent, then drivers will know and carriers will know which shippers are operating as a shipper of choice. Is that what you see as well?
I do. In today's world, data is king. In today's regulatory legislative environment, if you have data backing up the stories you're telling, the world is your oyster, so to speak. So at this point in time, I think that will do. I think this is opening the eyes of shippers out there and encountering or seeing problems that they never before knew existed, or never really acknowledged to that point. And I think that data is highlighting these things so that those shippers, the shippers of choice out there, will really make changes to expedite that process and make sure that drivers, the old theory of drivers can't park on my lot, I think that's going to start changing because, number one, capacity is tightened up. This is a driver-centric world we're living in now, and at that point in time, they're going to start doing things that benefit the driver because of the nature of the ELDs out there, the data they're showing, truck parking issues, things that we have never been able to captured before, such as distance from the road in which they're parking, where they're parking legally, where they're parking illegally. You know, the statistical significance of not being able to find a parking spot east of the Mississippi from 6 to midnight. All these things are really coming into play, and we're tracking these with ELDs so that the drivers have a better or easier day. We're making that lifestyle better for them so that they can operate in a more efficient manner and a manner in which basically benefits them.
So one of the other subjects that's come out, I'm excited about what ELDs are going to do, particularly for the driver and improving quality of life. But one of the other subjects that's sort of getting a lot of attention right now is the idea of 33s. There's been some of the LTL carriers as well as some of the shippers have come out and said that 33s, they want to really implement 33s throughout our industry. You guys have been transparent about the fact that you're concerned about safety as well as other issues. Do you want to talk a little bit about your view on 33s?
Sure, and this is one of those things. First and foremost, we have to highlight the fact that industry's just not together on this issue. So mandating a trailer change just isn't going to work for the entire industry. It does not work for the truckload segment of the industry. For instance, logistically speaking, freight delivery models and setups at big box stores does not work for that type of configuration, and that's the truckload environment. You know, this is not the LTL environment where these guys are driving from terminal to terminal and unloading and breaking down freight. The truckload guys are delivering this freight in a 53-foot trailer. That's the workhorse in this nation, and they're doing that. And if they broke it up into 33s, it just doesn't work. You can't pull into a large box store and back these things up, because guess what? You can't back up tandems. And 33-foot trailers going in reverse with a straight line is just not going to happen.
Well, how do you respond to the argument where they say, well, this is just a way to restrict capacity? Is it a safety issue, or do you fundamentally believe that the truckload industry just isn't positioned to respond to this?
A couple things. There are some safety ramifications. The stopping distance, for one, I believe is 22 feet longer to stop twin 33-foot trailers. So that first and foremost would be issue number one. So there are safety ramifications. And number two, you know, the 53-foot trailer, that's our mule, that's our workhorse in this industry, and that's the model that's delivered the most freight over the years. To transition that, and we experienced this when we changed from 48-foot trailers to 53-foot trailers, it would virtually antiquate 53-foot trailers overnight, because shippers would just want to put more goods in those twin 33-foot trailers. To say nothing of the fact, and we talked about truck parking, where are we going to park these things? Parking is at a premium already, but now we're increasing the length of these trucks. Which will clog up even more truck parking spaces. So where are these drivers going to park now that we're under the real world of ELDs? And so now they have to hunt even further. They would have to hunt even further for larger parking spots to accommodate these trailers. It just doesn't work that way. Logistically speaking, this world is not set up for these things. And quite frankly, as we enter the world of infrastructure improvements, you know, we're going to be building new roads or improving upon the roads that we have now, and putting longer and heavier trucks, if it does get more weight, but longer trucks out there on the roads today just does not benefit that environment.
So congestion's been a major issue. I imagine these longer trailers and longer trucks will just create more congestion.
Yep.
Because it's just going to take more of our highway infrastructure.
Yep.
And that seems like an issue. How do you think, when we look at congestion, how do you think the industry is responding to congestion issues? Or is this something that the industry is just not together on its own?
Congestion is an entirely different thing, and I think that's outside the world of 33s. 33s would add to that problem, because it probably would divert freight from the railroads onto these trailers, because the railroads wouldn't be able to accommodate the twin 33-foot trailer in an intermodal operation right now anyway. So the argument of diversion or taking trucks off the road just isn't going to happen. In fact, probably the same amount will be on the highways, and the congestion would just still be there. We as an industry are actually talking quite heavily on a fuel tax increase to help improve infrastructure. I mean, the new Congress, you know, with the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, they're dedicated to getting an infrastructure plan in place, and hopefully those plans will address some of these congestion problems. You know, we use the roadways just as much as our four-wheel counterparts do, and we want to pay for those changes. We want to pay more in a fuel tax to basically improve our roads and crumbling bridges. I think our infrastructure rated a D or D- or something through the American Society of Civil Engineers. That's just not a good thing. And being able to change that and have an effectual change, and having a highway plan in place that dedicates funds towards the Highway Trust Fund will certainly make our infrastructure and improve that into the nation that we are today.
So you're talking about fuel tax increases,
Yep.
which taxes are always a hot button, really for everybody. what do you want in return? So you say we want fuel taxes. What is it that if Congress were to pass a fuel tax,
Yep.
what is it that they should be delivering to the industry and frankly to society in return for implementing a fuel tax?
Well, fuel tax, specifically by the trucking industry, would love to see that money that we would pay an additional fuel tax stay within our infrastructure, and by infrastructure means roadways and bridges, interstates improvements, repaving, developing new lanes. That's what we would hope to see, so that we can expedite that freight delivery model, so that our drivers are no longer being held up in congestion. So those bottleneck areas and freight delivery delays that we highlight almost on a daily, if not yearly basis, are improved upon through Highway Trust Fund dollars. The Highway Trust Fund's going broke, so we have to figure out a sustainable way to fund it. In doing so, we have to make sure that those funds to the Highway Trust Fund are going directly to our roads and bridges.
All right, last question I have for you.
Cool.
Always a topic of conversation: autonomous vehicles and driverless vehicles.
Yeah.
Your view, first of all, when do you think, if ever, we'll see autonomous, and when do you think that will take place?
Wow, you and your crystal ball questions, right? And that's a great question. Is it going to happen tomorrow? No. And I think we as an industry are strongly focusing on driver assist technology, which is the next step towards autonomy. You know, lane departure warning systems, forward collision avoidance mitigation systems, cameras all over the trucks. These are technology that will improve the safety performance of the drivers. Now, having a driverless truck out there, that's a different ballgame altogether. Several things have to happen. Number one, we talked infrastructure. We need the improvement so that this technology can key in, the technology on the trucks can key in on the improved infrastructure. So we have to talk about changing that before we get to autonomous vehicles. If I'm a betting man, you know, and you're looking for predictions here, you know, long range and 20 years at a minimum, you know, we have to have serious conversations, liability issues, security issues of you know, for instance, cybersecurity hacking into these vehicles. Is that possible? Can it happen? And if it does happen, what plans do we have in place to actually thwart that, if you will? So there's a lot of discussions that still need to be had on this issue. The technology is there, but whether it gets rolled out, it's not going to get rolled out tomorrow. It just won't happen. So, but 20 years probably by the time I'm retiring, with a little luck at that point, probably by the time we'll start seeing it out there.
So if you're a driver or someone considered a career as a truck driver, mm-hmm. or coming into the industry that's reading a lot of the common press about autonomous vehicles,
yep.
or imminent, your view and the view of your we've heard from members that autonomous is not a near-term issue,
no.
And so they shouldn't be concerned about their careers. There's long opportunities.
Most of these trucks do have a driver's seat and do have a steering wheel. When you have those two things, there needs to be somebody that's going to sit there. So I think it's more of a question of what are we going to be calling them. In the airline industry, we call them pilots. In the railroad industry, we call them engineers. Does the title of truck driver, professional truck driver, change? And that becomes the question. But there's always going to be a need for somebody to take over the steering wheel if something goes wrong, and they need to know how to operate those trucks. You know, I've heard the comparison to drone technology for these planes that fly overhead and that are unmanned. Well, the difference between drones and trucks is trucks are sharing the road. Drones are not, you know, it's a wide open sky at this point in time. So there is a difference. So if a driver is unable or able to take over that truck if something goes wrong, so they avoid a crash or a potential accident, that's what we're going to need these folks to do. So if you're a professional truck driver getting involved in this industry, you do have a long career ahead of you, without a doubt. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Well, Dave, I really appreciate your time here. Any closing thoughts?
And this is a great facility. Freightwave's doing a fantastic job. I'm looking forward to the partnership that TCA and Freightwaves are going to have, and you know, I think it's going to be a lot more to come. This issue, as we get into Congress, infrastructure, productivity, ELD data, these are all the tip of the icebergs, and these are going to be conversations that are going to be driving this industry for a while. So I don't think there's an end in sight, and I look forward to having these conversations without a doubt.
Well, great. Well, appreciate Dave here in Chattanooga, and we'll follow up with other stories. And appreciate Dave. Thanks for.
Thank you. Appreciate it.